This is always the headline grabber, isn't it? I think actually Kemi doesn't have enough confidence in her. She doesn't have enough confidence in herself. In that, I know that she has been really wanting to listen and absorb this year. I don't know whether Kemi is getting more. It's difficult to tell whether she's getting a bit more of this criticism, and I can't help thinking that, you know, it's not easy being a woman in politics.
What, you think she gets more criticism because she's a woman?
I think it's really, really difficult, yeah.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming to our pod record of Electoral Dysfunction, and for you listening to this, not sitting in the room with us, if you hear trams going by, it's because we're in Manchester and we're near a tram line, so those rumblings are not my stomach, they're trams. And you can hear, what's that? Yeah, there's one there. That was good time. That was comic timing, wasn't it? We are delighted to have Victoria Atkins with us today for the podcast. Shadow Environment Secretary, former Cabinet Minister in charge of the NHS. So you've had some very big jobs in politics. And Victoria, I'm going to get into politics, not least your Union Jack jacket, which I'm obsessed with. And I should say to all of you listening, I'm very upset that Victoria is not wearing aforementioned jacket. But I think if you find some clips of this on social media, someone will clip you up, Victoria, in that jacket. No doubt. But before we get into politics, I want to talk a bit about you. And my first question, and I asked Wes Street in this last week, your former, what would you call him, your opponent when you were Health Secretary, he was Shadow Secretary. But the question I asked him, my opening question was, and I'm going to ask you, who is your best friend in politics?
Oh, that is a lovely question, if I may say so. My best friend in politics is Seema Kennedy, who was the then Prime Minister's PPS, Theresa May's PPS, and she is just a lovely, lovely human being.
She is a lovely human being. She stood down, didn't she? She did one term, did she?
Yeah, she did. But my goodness me, what a term.
And out of the current crew, then, who's your best friend?
Oh, gosh. I have a lot of friends. That's very tricky. And I'm conscious that if I answer that, then there will be people that will be upset with me.
Okay.
So I'm
going to get in trouble.
I'm just going to leave that hanging in the air.
This is like Eze, who's just joined Arsenal. And I was watching a video of this, and Eze also said, I've got lots of friends, because he didn't want to... he wanted to make sure that it's a team sport.
It's a team sport.
And he didn't want the team to think he had any favourites. All right, well, let's move on. Now, I wondered whether you might have said John Major, because... and people here might not know this, your dad was a Tory MP and a Cabinet Minister, and he was also good friends with the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister John Major, who apparently remembers you in nappies.
Yes. Well, in fact, I'm delighted to be here at Conservative Party conference, and not just this year, but every year, because my parents met at Conservative Party conference. So if it's thanks to the Conservative Party, I'm here. And can I just say to anyone who may be thinking that there's a bit of romance in the air this week, you know, you never know, you might have met Mr. or Mrs. Right. You don't know. Yeah.
Well, I did not know that, so that's new information. And I've trawled your life online, so that's good. Now we speak to lots of people in politics on this podcast, and some of them sort of talk about the imposter syndrome they have when they've started out in life, done something very different, and then they get into politics. But for you, it's like a family business. Your parents met here. I didn't know that. But your mum was also a councillor. Your dad was in cabinet. Yeah. Does that change your approach when it's kind of you've grown up with it? You don't have imposter syndrome. You've grown up with politics. Well,
actually, oddly enough, I mean, I grew up in where politics was talked about over the family table, and met some amazing people along the way. But actually, when I left school, went to university and read law, I was absolutely set on becoming a criminal barrister. Because I just fell in love. I went to the Old Bailey and I fell in love with the idea of, justice being played out there in Court 1 or Court 2 of the Bailey, and the impact that having, being able to prosecute, as I later did, the impact that could have. But actually, the reason I started to study law was partly because when we were having one of those conversations that mums and dads do with their children about what are you going to do with the rest of your life, my dad observed that I'm very good at arguing. So perhaps I should think about a career in the law. So it sort of took off from there.
But he didn't say a career in politics.
No, and I was not going to get involved in that at all. And then genuinely, I did all my legal studies, and one of the first cases I ever took on in my own right, I was very junior at the time, I was sent by my clerk to a youth court in the south of England, and with nothing but a yellow post-it note with the name of the defendant on it. And I got to the youth court, and it was a 12-year-old boy called Billy, who I call Billy, who was up for his first offence. And you could see the moment that Billy got that conviction that he was going to get, because he was caught red-handed. It was an opportunistic commercial burglary. Somebody had left a window open in a warehouse. At the moment he got that conviction, his life chances were suddenly going to start to flutter away from him. And I saw Billy, and he was there by himself, and I said, is anyone coming to look after you? Because by law, he's supposed to, at that age, have an adult. And I said, is Mum or Dad coming to look after you? And he said, completely matter-of-factly, I've never known my dad, and my mum will be flat out drunk on the floor by now. And it was 9:30 in the morning. And I thought the life chances of that child are just, as I say, disappearing for our eyes. So I vowed then, at some point in the future, I was going to try and do something to help children like Billy. Fast forward, more time than I care to admit to, David Cameron reopens the candidates list in the wake of the expenses scandal, asking for people with real life experience. And I'd done all sorts of cases in the criminal courts, the Bailion at Southwark, and I thought, actually, I've seen quite a bit of real life. And so I put my name forward, and lo and behold, cutting a very long story short, I got elected, found myself being appointed as a Home Office Minister and then a Ministry of Justice Minister, and I was able to set up intervention schemes to help children like Billy.
What does your dad think about the party now? Do you still talk about politics with your dad? Presumably,
yeah, of course. And actually, he was here today. He and Mum
was he?
Very
What's
sweet.
Come and watch you?
Yeah, they did. It was lovely. It's quite disconcerting. As anyone who's ever been a special advisor or worked in press for a member of Parliament or a minister or cabinet minister, you know that there are certain rules that they always try and sit out of your eye line so that you're not distracted. The person being interviewed giving the speech isn't distracted by somebody they know sitting right in front of them. And my father completely ignored that today, so he was sat right where the camera was. I was like, okay, hi Dad. Yeah, so
that's so nice. Yeah. That's nice. He must be proud of you, is he?
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
Now, before we move on to the state of politics, because we've got to get down to business. Yeah. I have to ask you this. In 2021, Jess Phillips arrived in the House of Commons, spotted you with your arm in a cast, and asked you what you had done. What did you say?
I said I broke it while skateboarding.
Okay, can you expand on that?
Yes. And I'm looking at my wrist because I properly concertinaed it. So I got on my son's skateboard, as I did at the time, from time to time, and just had a shocking... I just fell back and properly concertinaed it. And I'm sorry to say it took 2 operations and several screws or pins and bits of metal. But it's now completely mended. And one of the things that I have been determined to do since that surgery was learning how to do full press-ups. So I'm proud of being able to do that. But also, I'm proud of the fact that James cleverly, when we were in cabinet together, he had a challenge.
I saw that.
Where he was doing some ridiculous amount of press-ups
like
every day.
100 press-ups a day. All there was Instagram of James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, doing press-ups.
And he had mentioned this in cabinet. And another colleague in Cabinet, male colleague, of course, had said, I'll challenge you. So they said, right, we'll go and do it upstairs in number 10. And it was all part of, it was for fundraising for charity, so it was a very good cause. And I said, well, have you not, sorry, it's just the boys doing it together, the men. What about female representation on this. And they sort of looked at me. And Jay said, yeah, come along. So there is video of us doing press-ups together. I have to say, I had the toughest gig because I was the only one doing my press-ups in high heels.
Well, look, let's get on to politics. Now, you're a One Nation politician. You know, if Ruth Davidson were listening now, she'd say you were one of the wets. That's how, you know, more at the centre ground of the party. You were a Remainer. Your party this week has committed to leaving the ECHR. Did that make you feel uncomfortable? Where have you come to peace with that? It's collective responsibility, so presumably you have to accept it. But Kemi's also said she thinks people should just speak freely at this party conference, no matter what the consequences. I don't mind people straying a little bit off-piste. Just go for it.
I am a proud One Nation Conservative, and I'm conscious that's a phrase that may not mean a lot to other people, but it means that I try to take a pragmatic view on policy, whilst very much adhering to our Conservative values. And I set some of those out today in my speech in front of a JCP tractor when we were having our farmers' rally at conference. But in terms of the European Convention, I actually have form on this because I wrote a policy paper in 2014, just before I was elected as a Member of Parliament, advocating for us to repeal Labour's Human Rights Act. Because I had seen at close hand the impact that piece of legislation was already having there, you know, after 15 years or so, was having on criminal trials. If you fast forward 11 years, obviously a lot has happened, particularly with illegal immigration, and we've seen it very visibly with the small boats. And I think we have to acknowledge that the interpretations and the judgments of the convention have moved a very, very long way from what was envisaged when it was first created just after the Second World War. And I'm particularly concerned, being, as you know, someone who has worked very, very extensively on violence against women and girls. I'm very concerned at some of the judgments that we've seen around the rights of convicted paedophiles and convicted rapists being put above the rights of the local community. And I think we have got to a stage now where we have to tackle this head-on.
This is what, Victoria, this is what Robert Buckland, former Justice Secretary, obviously on your wing of the party, lost his seat. Or I think he maybe decided to stand down in the last election.
He lost, sadly. He did a superb speech on the night itself. Yeah.
He said leaving the ECHR would be a grave mistake. He said the ECHR is not some foreign imposition that controls our sovereignty. It was born of British leadership after the horrors of the Second World War, drafted with heavy British influence and championed by Winston Churchill himself. You can see where he's coming from.
And I share his sorrow, but I also have to deal with the politics of today. And we see this disenfranchisement between the law as it is now interpreted and what people want to see from the government of the day and also the protection of our borders. And I think that the sadness actually is the way that the court and indeed judgments flowing from the court, the European Court, have been used. That is a great sadness to me, but we have to deal with real life. And this is why I'm not for a moment saying that everybody should read the 185-page legal opinion of David Wolfson, KC, Shadow Attorney General, but we wanted to do this in a very carefully thought through way to ensure that we were aware of all the issues that will be thrown up by this, and we're being very frank about that, but also to show the legal grounding for this.
And Kemi Badenoch said on Sunday that if you want to be a Member of Parliament as a Conservative, you need to understand leaving the ECHR as a manifesto commitment. Do you think that all Conservative MPs have to sign up to leaving the ECHR, or do you think if you're if you're not on the front bench, you should be able to disagree with that, because there will be a big wing of the party that are not comfortable with it?
I genuinely think actually views have changed, and they've changed recently as well. This has been a journey, I think, for a lot of people, and just from my conversations with friends and colleagues, and I'm not going to name people, but people who perhaps a few years ago would have felt very, very uncomfortable about this now have seen the impact that immigration is having on our democracy as well. So I think, we will have the manifesto at the next election, and it seems to me that this is such an important part of that manifesto.
So you're like, everyone has to sign up for it? It is right that
we are, because it comes back to the issue of trust as well. We have listened very carefully to people since the general election. This issue of trust is enormous in our politics. Sadly, the current government has massively undermined trust. And that is why, arguably, other political parties are doing better than, frankly, anyone expects on the polls, although I don't pay much attention to those polls at this stage in the electoral cycle. But that issue of trust is critical, which is why we have to say what we're going to do on this and mean it and deliver it.
OK. I'm going to come to reform in a minute, because I think that's the other party you're referring to.
Well, no, and the Lib Dems, they're all political. This is one of the things. All of our political opponents, we should treat with the realism that if their name is on the ballot paper, if their party is, then they can take votes from us. So whether they are Lib Dems, Reform, dare I say it, the Greens, then all of them should take seriously.
But just on chasing reform, you're also repealing the Climate Change Act. Theresa May has described that as a catastrophic mistake. She said she was deeply disappointed with that decision. Again, it would be a one-nation position that again matters, and they are that is the space of the Lib Dem voter as well, right? What's your view of that?
So climate change is happening now. And we know, my work as the Shadow Secretary of State, I see for myself the impacts this is having here in the United Kingdom, let alone elsewhere in the world. I was out on a fishing boat, for example, in this summer, where the fishermen on board were telling me that the temperature of the channel has begun to rise, and it's having a huge impact on fish stocks. Indeed, they said, everybody's talking about the fact that there are tuna now appearing in the English Channel. That's because the temperature of the sea has increased. And this fisherman in particular described to me that tuna are, as he called them, the velociraptors of the channel, because they are having a huge impact on our native fish species. So climate change is happening. We have to ask ourselves, after 20 years of this piece of legislation being in place, has it worked? And whilst we're very proud of our record on reducing carbon emissions, the rest of the world, frankly, has not been following our lead. And we also have to acknowledge that this particular piece of legislation is having a huge impact on people's energy bills. And as DEFRA Secretary, I'm conscious not just of the food prices that are going up every day and every week for people with their shops, for their families and so on, but also the fact that energy prices are such a huge blow on people's cost of living. So I think if we are, as Conservatives, want to talk to people
you've talked about
this, we have to deal with it.
But you've talked about fishermen. Farmers are saying that they're facing devastation caused by extreme weather events, and then yet the party's rowing back from commitment to reducing emissions.
So to be very, very clear, we are, as I say, climate change is happening now. I know this because my own constituency sadly suffers from flooding. We had a terrible episode of flooding with Storm Babette a couple of years ago. So this is not about saying this isn't existing or we're not going to do anything about it. We're saying we want to look, the 2008 Act has not worked, because emissions continue to rise elsewhere in the world.
Theresa May said it was a catastrophic mistake. Is she wrong?
If I may just finish, and then I'll come on to Theresa. And then what we will do is replace it with legislation that protects nature, that allows innovation with clean energy, but also importantly brings people's bills down, because that is why, and we're at risk actually, as happened with the Human Rights Act, because Labour has mismanaged the legislation in the first place. Nowadays, if you use the term human rights, a lot of people sadly will roll their eyebrows because they will think, come on, you know, that it has lost its power that it should have. So too, I fear we're beginning to see it with very, very real and legitimate concerns about climate change. So what we're trying to do with this announcement is to show that we absolutely want to tackle climate change, but we want to do it in a way where we are trying not to ensure that people's energy bills are as high as they are. I think with our energy bills are the highest in the OECD. Now that's wrong. You know, we've got to find other ways of doing it.
We've talked about farmers facing devastation from extreme events. What about the Conservative Party? In terms of, let me deal with farmers first of all. We've got, I've called today, we've got a food and farming emergency because we know with rising food prices, with record farm closures, with 2 pubs and restaurants closing a day, and 80% of farmers saying that they don't think their farm's going to survive. Not only are we seeing food prices rise now, but we're going to see it in the future. And so I've used that word very carefully and deliberately because I genuinely think in a year's time, if we don't change, if the government doesn't change course, we are going to have even more problems with farm closures and other impacts on the countryside. In terms of us as a party, this conference so far, I mean, today has been a day of real energy and positivity and excitement. I mean, my rally in front of the JCB tractor. In your Union Jack jacket.
In my Union Jack jacket with placards. We had hundreds and hundreds of people there, all uniting around the message of saving British farming and fighting the family farm tax. We will axe it when we're back in government. And I think, you know, what you're beginning to see now with this conference, this last year was always going to be tough because we had a proper kicking at the general election. We've had to actually take a bit of time to listen to people and to acknowledge that there were mistakes. And now I think this conference, you're really beginning to see how carefully we're thinking about all this and our ideas for the future.
How's it been for you post-election? Because you've held your seat in Lincolnshire, but it's in a world that has changed a lot. You've got Richard Tice is now one of the MPs. This was true blue territory for decades. You've got Andrew Jenkins now as the mayor, and the Lincolnshire County Council is reform. I mean, you're sort of operating in a hostile environment, aren't you?
I think actually what's coming out from both the mayoralty and the county council is that they're all talk and no action. So I couldn't tell you a single thing that the mayor of Lincolnshire has done since she was elected. I compare and contrast that with Paul Bristow, the Conservative Mayor of Cambridgeshire, who has already got a growth plan, and the story in Cambridgeshire is really exciting and one of genuine innovation and growth. You know, at the moment, they announce a policy and then they're cross-examined by the media about how they're actually going to implement that policy. It falls apart. And headlines are all well and good, but headlines won't help prevent bad harvests. They won't help in times of international volatility. They frankly won't help the economy as we're trying to build it to be stronger and to make the cost of living a bit easier for people.
We're running out of time, sadly, Victoria, because I feel I'm only just beginning here. You're talking about reform and sort of all talk, no action. What about Kemi Badenoch? What would you say is her biggest strength?
Her biggest strength is actually her resilience, and I genuinely think she has got the toughest job in politics. You know, she is getting fire from all sides, and she has really begun the process of renewal, and this was always going to take time. Because we lost, sadly, so many colleagues and friends from the House of Commons. But she has shown that she is resilient, and that, by the way, is critical, because what you can't have in the occupant of number 10, you cannot have someone who is thin-skinned and doesn't like having their policies questioned, or indeed isn't able to back up their announcements with substance. And by the way, that applies to all 3 male political leaders, that analysis. So she has resilience, she has character, and she has shown, I think, this week, the fight that she has in her and the direction of travel in terms of our policies and the thinking, and daring to ask questions that have been accepted norms.
Play devil's advocate here. She announced a plan to deport 150,000 illegal migrants a year, and I've looked. There's nothing to back that up.
Well, so in terms of that policy, Chris Philp has produced a very, very glossy brochure, which
there is nothing to back up that was the front page of the Telegraph.
Yeah.
That was her announcement. Nothing to back it up. And then when she went on television, she couldn't explain how she was going to do it. And that seemed to jar with me. I'm not trying to be difficult.
No.
It jarred with me in terms of this idea that I'm a serious politician, I'm going to put forward serious proposals, and then I'm going to back them up, and then she just didn't.
So that announcement, as I understand it, is ensuring that where people have come from, where they still have their documentation, of course we know many of them sadly destroy it when they are making that crossing across the channel, that they are able to be returned to their countries of origin. But also we come back to the policy of a deterrence. And if the message to people is to people who are trying to come to this country for economic reasons, the message is you will be taken away.
I don't want to do it, but
I
understand the principle, but she did announce a policy that then she didn't back up, which didn't seem that dissimilar to me to kind of the criticisms that were directed at Farage when he talked about 600,000 over a parliament, which is the same as 150,000 a year.
But please, I mean, I know you will have paid it huge attention, but if you look at the David Wolfson opinion, and I know this is difficult, it's in this age where politics is moving so fast and we're used to scrolling really quickly, and to have advice of that quality and that depth shows that there are some very difficult issues coming up. We haven't shied away from that in the context of the European Convention, but that we are thinking very, very deeply about this and coming up with the sorts of explanations.
We've done Kemi's greatest strength. What's her greatest weakness?
This is always the headline grabber, isn't it? I think actually Kemi doesn't have enough confidence in her. She doesn't have enough confidence in herself, in that I know that she has been really wanting to listen and absorb this year, and I think this conference we're seeing her having that confidence, having been in that role for a while now. She's got that confidence and she's going with her instinct, and I think that's really exciting.
Well, you think she might have been second-guessing herself a bit this past year?
I think she has been very keen to ensure that we are listening, I agree with her, it was right to do that. I know it's taken a bit of arguably we've taken a bit of a political knock with it, but she was right to listen and to absorb, frankly, some of the criticism coming from her, from all directions, our opponents and so on. But now we are seeing Kemi, I really think, really blossoming and coming into her own on this. And it takes every single leader of the opposition time to find the way that they like doing things, whether it was David Cameron in his earliest days and even Keir Starmer. It has taken every single leader a bit of time to do that. I don't know whether Kemi is getting more. It's difficult to tell whether she's getting a bit more of this criticism, and I can't help thinking that, it's not easy being a woman in politics.
Well, you think she gets more criticism because she's a woman?
I think it's really, really difficult, yeah. I think it's very easy for people to criticise her, and what I really admire about Kemi is that she just, as I say, has that resilience, has that character.
So Victoria, I won't dwell on this because but when you hear all the talk about whether or not there might be a plot to remove her before Christmas, or whether or not after the May local election she'll have to go if the party goes backwards, does that make you feel quite angry? Do you think everyone should just shut up and get on with it? I mean, you didn't back her, you backed Rob Jenrick in the leadership race.
And also, that was a fair contest. Kemi won by a large margin, and as a Conservative, I want us to get back behind our leader.
So do you just
the future of the country genuinely depends on the success of the Conservative Party, because we are the only ones doing the thinking at the moment, daring to analyse and question some of the approaches that have happened in the past, and we have got to do that very careful thinking. We cannot just throw headlines.
Is your message to the party to pipe down? Pipe down.
I will never advise my colleagues as to what they should or shouldn't do. I think actually there is an enormous amount of support for Kemi in the parliamentary party and indeed the wider party and in the country. I mean, you know, when I speak to farmers about our policies to help save British farming, they are 100%. You know, they are very, very supportive of the efforts that we are going to win back their trust, but also to present a positive future for farming. And I think, you know, we've got to, as a party, realise this isn't about us as individuals. It is a team, and we've got to work together as a team.
Victoria, I have to ask you this. A couple of weekends ago, Danny Kruger defected. Do you know who is the next shadow cabinet minister odds on by William Hill to defect to Reform UK? Do you know who it is? Yeah. Do you know who it is? Who is it?
It's me.
I just literally love this.
I mean, clearly I never, ever indulge in political betting, but if anyone wants to beat the bookies, then please go ahead.
I just made me laugh.
I know, it made me laugh.
I was like, oh, hang on. All of the shadow cabinet, definitely Victoria Atkins. She's definitely... You'd be more likely to defect to the Lib Dems, wouldn't you?
No, never. My God, they're Labour enablers. Why on earth would I go and join them? Knitting their own sandals and cavorting around watercourses. I mean, for God's sake, we've got to be serious in politics.
All right, it's quickfire time. Jilly Cooper or Jilly Cooper?
Oh, Jilly Cooper.
Jilly Cooper. Have you got a favourite of Jilly's books?
So I have read many of them in my youth. I have to confess.
I can't remember them. I have to say, I was 14. Did you?
No.
We're literally the same age.
Yeah. Loved Rivals though.
Rivals.
Have to say, loved as in the television production. Yeah.
I watched the television production on the Prime Minister's plane, and then realised I had to stop watching the television production on the Prime Minister's plane because it was just so saucy. I was like, I can't watch this here. Shut that. Okay, Taylor Swift or Beyonce?
Oh, that's tricky. Why are we pitting women against women? Why can't I have a both? Can I have both?
Yeah, you can. Sunrise Turn Pretty or Maths?
Sorry?
Sunrise Turn Pretty or Married at First Sight? Doesn't watch them.
No.
It's sad.
No, sorry.
Sad
I haven't got time. I'm too busy saving British farming.
You've got time. You've got time for Sunrise Turn Pretty for sure. John Major or Margaret Thatcher?
Both great prime ministers, but my close person, my family friend, John.
John Major.
Apparently, though, can I tell you an anecdote? Apparently, I met Margaret Thatcher when I was a toddler, and apparently I went straight... I was at that age where you're fascinated by necklaces, and I went straight for her pearls and tried to throw her...
them?
Yeah, well, just take the pearls. Clearly I didn't... I have no memory of this, but she dealt with it, as you would imagine, with great charm and aplomb.
That's something, isn't it, to say... My claim to fame is I tried to rip Margaret Thatcher's pearls off her neck.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was very, very young, teeny tiny.
OK, Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick?
Kemi Badenoch is our leader. Rob is a great friend of mine and is doing a fantastic job in justice. Has anyone noticed, by the way, how many ticket enforcement officers there are on the tube nowadays as compared to before Rob's video?
Yeah, he did.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
One-man campaign, a Blackpool Tower or the Leaning Tower of Pisa?
Oh, always Blackpool Tower. Always. I went to school in Blackpool. I love Blackpool.
Well, that's why I did
I could hear the screams from the Big Dipper in my classrooms at school.
I actually went to Blackpool Tower with Uncle Jeff when I was a kid, and we danced on the dance floor.
Oh, wow. What, proper dancing? Proper ballroom dancing?
Yeah, a little bit.
My goodness.
It was good.
That is, I know nothing,
You
I'm not
need to do Strictly Come Dancing, really.
Oh, my goodness, I would love it.
Oh, there we go.
Will you be my partner? Now that they allow... I know, it has to be a celebrity. Well, no, they're terribly sort of open-minded nowadays. Perhaps they'll allow... You can be the professional, I'll be the amateur. There we go.
You wouldn't get very far. Try it. And finally, dog or cat?
I mean, this is the hardest question of all. So I have the most beautiful blue whippet called Bob,
yes,
named after Bob in Blackadder, another age reference there. But I adore cats as well. I grew up with cats. But my whippet is he's a dog cat. He's a cat dog.
But haven't you got a cat?
I did.
Oh,
she
no.
passed away. I know.
I'm sorry.
I know, that was
She had an amazing name.
She did. She was a beautiful, beautiful Maine Coon cat, very big, and she was named by my then 4-year-old son, Gaston, the turbo snail. Which, who knows, the way... But
did he use her full name when he
yes,
addressed
absolutely.
her?
You can imagine being at the back door calling her in. That was embarrassing.
Well, on that note, let's end it. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria Atkins, for coming and being on Electoral Dysfunction. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you very much for your own report.